Hello everyone. Today we will try to understand the need for cloud computing with the help of an example of a startup and how cloud computing can be beneficial in this case when compared to traditional on-premise deployment. So let's get started. Imagine you are a startup founder. You have a simple web application as your product. And for the product, you have limited user base which wants to use your application. You start with creating a web application, and once you are done with the development, the next step comes is to give the application to the users to access. Now, in order to achieve that, we need to deploy the application to a web server. Think of a web server as a computer which will host your web application and will allow the user to access your web application through it. You are at the initial stage of your startup, so the financial constraints are in place. Still, you go ahead and buy the parts required to build a web server like CPU, motherboard, memory, storage, and you can build a web server on which you can host your web application and continue to serve your users. Once the users start recommending your application to other users, that is when your user base starts to grow. As the user base grows, so does the load on your web servers. Now we are reaching a point where the existing hardware is not able to serve the new demand, which is put by the new set of users on your system. But since the users have increased, so is the financial condition improved. Now we have money to invest in new set of hardware, so you'll go out and buy a new set of same equipment and create a new web server. Now the traffic is getting divided between these two servers, and as and when the users increase, you can keep adding new systems to this pool. Now, after some time, you realize your tasks are more CPU intensive or memory intensive or storage intensive. For example, you are providing a service which allows users to compress files. This might be CPU intensive. So you'd want to get a better CPU and normal storage and memory. Whereas in case of database services, you want storage intensive tasks, which allows many reads writes. So you'd want to allocate more money on getting a better storage device. This proves a constraint for you to build servers, and the existing servers are very weak to your use case. Now you might have discarded them and they are of no use to you. Instead, now, consider a situation where you are at the starting position again and want to host your web application on a web server. There comes a person who says, I'll take care of providing the hardware required for hosting your web application and gives you flexibility to scale the hardware or add new instances of same hardware to meet the growing demands of the application for a set charge, which is lower than the upfront cost of acquiring the hardware. Think of it as a rent you pay for using this hardware. This way, you are never tied to your hardware always. You won't have to go buy new hardware. You can simply request the person to allocate new system from his inventory and add it to your pool. This way, you'll save a lot of money, and later, if you want to stop using older instances which were less powerful and switch to more capable hardware, you can do so without having to bear the loss of money which you would have incurred if you would have acquired the hardware yourself. This is what cloud computing offers. Actually, it offers a lot more than this, but for the initial understanding, this seems a good example. Suppose you go to AWS and request for an AC2 instance, and AWS allocates a system on which you can host your application. In the case of increase in traffic, it'll scale up and spawn newer instances and hence continuing to serve increased customers. In case you no longer need an instance, you can scale them down so that you can save on running costs of the hardware. This way, you get an extremely reliable and flexible solution which works for you efficiently and saves you the unnecessary expense of maintaining the infrastructure. There are many other cloud solutions and they offer different kind of services like platform as a service, serverless. This particular example is of infrastructure as a service. I hope this video has cleared the understanding of need for cloud computing and what is the issue which it solves by an example. Thank you.